Anger
Coming
comes
up on
from
Unleash Thyself.
either one, two or three mistakes, okay, those filters. And then the fact that we feel angry makes us feel justified. It makes us feel that we're right, the way we're looking at things, okay? It has kind of a righteous quality to it, all right? So it actually, it's a double whammy. The emotion, the emotion gets created from falsehoods many times, and then we're prevented from seeing the falsehoods because we feel the emotion and it makes us feel like our perceptions and our view of the world are correct. And oftentimes they're not.
Absolutely.
So we're kind of blocked from investigating and figuring out, where we may have a blind spot or where we may have missed something or misinterpreted something or, made a lot of common, errors in terms of judging people and judging things, which happens all the time. So it's a very interesting process it's amazing. If you look at all the anger in the world today, you turn on your television and you scroll social media, you see the mountains and mountains of anger. It's all coming from these three filters and the fact that people don't understand that that's where their anger is coming from. So
Welcome to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I'm your host, Konstantin Morun, and today I'm so thrilled to welcome Dr. Mort Orman, MD, to the show. Now, Dr. Mort is an internal medicine physician and a 40-year anger elimination and stress elimination expert. He has written over 20 books on how to eliminate anger and stress without using drugs, relaxation exercises, or other traditional management techniques. He's also the creator of the 10-session Angry No More anger elimination program and the ultimate stress relief system and training program. Now, Dr. Orman has led more than 100 anger and stress elimination workshops for doctors, nurses, lawyers, business owners, entrepreneurs, other professionals, the clergy, and even the FBI. He has also been the official sponsor of National Stress Awareness Month in the US, which happens to be every April, since 1992. Now, with that being said, I want to welcome Dr. Moore to the show. And even if you personally are not struggling with anger, you may know someone that is. And this episode will benefit you and them equally. Well, Dr. Moore, welcome.
Well, thank you. Actually, people who don't have any anger problems could still benefit from this session because it's really about how we understand our emotions or how we've been taught to misunderstand our emotions in general. So it's not limited just to anger. It's about all.
I love that. So let's start right there.
Anybody can get benefit from this.
Yeah. So let's start. Okay. So you specialize in anger, but yet even if you're not an angry person, you can benefit from this. Tell us why and how you see it.
Well, a couple of reasons. Well, firstly, we all have some degrees of anger from time to time, even if it's little irritations, annoyances, things like, some resentments that can build up over time. And those can be problematic in our lives. So almost everybody has some degree of anger issues. Mm-hmm. But what I like to do is educate people about how badly we've been misinformed about our emotions, how we don't understand anger and we don't understand a lot of other emotions. But I zero in on anger. If you really understand anger very deeply, and you understand how that emotion works, you'll understand how all the other emotions work too, because they're similar. So I focus on anger, but I'm really helping people understand emotions in general, because I found, even with all my medical training and dabbling in psychology, that I really didn't understand human emotions until I finally did. And that made a huge difference in my life. And I've been teaching that for the last 40 years to people. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, right? Because it brings up something that I've seen to be true in my life and the life of everyone I've met, is that nothing really works in isolation. And everything seems to be connected in some way. So like you said, if you deal with the anger, let's say that's the one you want to go after, it's going to have a ripple effect across all the other emotions that will help you understand and deal with them better.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, I have a question that comes up right away. What's the most surprising fact you've learned about anger on your journey to eliminate it from your own life and the life of many others? Something that maybe people are not believing at first.
Yeah, we have this kind of common sense notion of what causes anger to occur. We think it's like a direct cause effect process. We see something we don't like, somebody does something we don't like, somebody hurts us or lies to us or cheats on us or does something.
Hmm.
Um, and we feel the anger like immediately. And it looks like it's a direct cause effect. One causes two. So we have this 1-2 model of anger, and the same for other emotions as well. Okay. But in anger in particular, it's so we think it's 1-2. And that's what I thought when I was in my 20s and 30s as a young man going through medical training and starting up my
Hmm.
practice. I had that 1-2 model of anger, and I had a lot of anger at that time, and I couldn't do anything about it. And what I realized a couple of years later was it was because I had the wrong model. I had this simple 1-2 cause effect model, and that really doesn't explain where the anger was coming from. And I found out anger is really a 4-step process.
Mm.
So there's actually 3 causes, and then you feel the anger. So it's not one causes two. It's one is the thing that you see or whatever upsets you or triggers you, the triggering event. 4 is the anger, and then there's 2
Hmm.
causes in the middle that are invisible that we don't see, and because they're happening inside us, they're happening inside our brain, they're happening inside our body, and we can't see them, we can't feel them. But until you know that anger is a 4-step process, it's cause, effect, you really can't get your hands on the controls because you're missing the 2 of the 3 most important
Yeah.
puzzle pieces. So that's where I was for many, many years, and where most people are today. Even a lot of experts, even a lot of anger experts, don't understand that anger is a 4-step process. Okay, when you understand what the 2 invisible causes of anger are inside of us, all of a sudden you go like, wow, now I see the whole picture. Now I've got all the puzzle pieces. Now I can step in and start doing things that I couldn't do before because I didn't know what these invisible causes
Hmm.
were, and I didn't know how to address them. So I figured that out 40 years ago, and it enabled me to get rid of almost all of the anger that I didn't want in my life. And it
Wow.
stayed that way for the last 40 years. I've had very little anger, and if I do get angry now, which is rare, I know exactly where it's coming from. I know how to identify those invisible causes. I can step in, make it go away so it doesn't last even a day. It doesn't even last hours. I can just make it go away very quickly. So I don't have a lot of lingering anger that goes on for days or weeks or months or interferes with my sleep or adds to health problems or damages my relationships or any of that kind of stuff that anger does. Um, because I now understand the 4 steps. It's actually 3 steps and then the anger. Okay.
Yes.
So that is like the biggest misconception that everybody's running around with a 2-step model,
Hmm.
thinking they understand where their anger is coming from.
Yeah. I
And,
mean, it
and
makes the question then: what
yeah,
are those 2 missing steps? You got me really curious. You got me hooked. I'm
okay.
like, oh,
Well,
tell me, tell me, tell me.
the first one is the first of the invisible ones is that we have to understand the way our brains work, and that we never perceive the world as it actually happens. We're
Hmm.
always our brains are always like simplifying things and chunking things down and filtering because there's so much data coming in. Our brain can't handle it all, so it has to decide what's important, what's not important. It leaves some things out. It emphasizes certain things. So everything we're seeing and perceiving is really filtered, and we have hundreds and hundreds of different filters. Some we get from our personal experiences in life. So if you were 3 years old and you got bit by a dog,
Yeah.
and now you're afraid of dogs, you have a filter that maybe you and I don't have because we didn't have that experience. And then there are other filters we get from our culture or from our society, or are very common for human beings. So, but we've got lots and lots of internal filters. Okay, so the important thing is to realize that everything's being filtered. And then what I realize is there's 3 main filters that cause anger. So whenever we're angry, we're looking at the world through 3 specific filters. And you got to have all 3, and they kind of line up in order. Okay. So the first one is you have to see whatever's happening as somebody doing something bad or wrong or that they shouldn't be doing. So, for example, if you're angry at your computer one day because it's on the fritz and it's not working
Hmm.
properly, you're saying, computer's doing something it shouldn't be doing. It's doing something wrong. It's not working. So you have to have that first filter. Somebody's doing something bad and wrong. Okay. Or if you're angry at your kid or your spouse, they're doing something wrong. They shouldn't be doing it. That kind of a thing. Okay.
That makes sense, right? Because it doesn't align with your belief of what good is, right? Because
Yeah.
it's so so specific to each of us, right? Because what I
Yes.
think is good is different from what you think.
Yes.
That's
So your
why,
filters may be different from my filters, but
yeah,
but if you're angry, you're going to have a filter that says, however you decide that they're doing something bad and wrong, it ends up being a bad and wrong thing that they're doing. That's what you see.
yeah,
Okay. And your judgment of bad and wrong may be different than mine, but
yeah,
still, if
exactly,
you're angry, you got to have that component. Okay.
yeah.
And then the second thing is that you have to see some not just bad and wrong behavior, but it's causing hurt and harm or negative impact to somebody. Could be you, or it could be somebody you care about, or it could be the world.
Mm,
You know, you see somebody polluting, let's say, or you if you believe in climate change and you see people not doing something, that's bad and wrong things they're doing, and all of us are being harmed because we're not taking care of the planet. So it's when you perceive things that way, then again, that's the second filter. And then the third filter is you look at the person doing the bad and wrong thing or the thing that's malfunctioning, and you see it as kind of exclusively to blame. So I call it like unilateral blame or
mm,
100% blame. So it's a very narrow filter of blame. You don't really take into account other causes that may be going on. You just focus on that person's behavior, and it looks like they're totally responsible for the
yeah.
hurt and harm and the negative or the bad and wrong thing that they're doing. So those are the three filters, and people should really write that down.
That's what I
Um,
did right now. I took my notes so I can come
yeah,
back to
yeah.
this.
Somebody's doing something bad or wrong. It shouldn't be done. There's hurt and harm, negative impact, and unilateral or 100% blame. Okay, when you get those three things lined up, that's where anger comes from. Everybody who's angry ultimately is looking at the world and the situation that they're angry about through those three filters. Okay. I've been doing this for 40 years. It has never not been the case in my life, and it's never not been in the case in the thousands of people that I've worked with.
I
Every
can
time
see it.
I say, tell me an example when you were angry, and you can see it maps onto those three things. We can do it right now. Can you think of anytime recently that you were ever angry about anything, even little bit or big?
Yeah, like just even like the other day, going upstairs and seeing something being misplaced by,
Okay.
let's say, my partner, right? And it's like, oh,
Something out of place. Okay.
yeah,
So, and you were angry at your partner for,
or myself even, right? Because maybe I did it.
yeah, same thing applies to you. Let's say you
Yeah,
did it. Okay. Let's say you meant to put something back and you didn't, you forgot. You go and you see it and you go, I'm really angry at myself now. Okay. Why are you angry? You're looking at yourself as doing something you shouldn't have
wrong.
done. Somebody was hurt. There was a negative impact. So the place is not tidy, or things are not in the proper place that you want. And who was responsible or to blame for not cleaning up? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
me.
So those three filters will always line up whenever you're angry. So the beauty of that is that from anybody listening to this recording or listening to this live, from this point on, they'll never be confused about where their anger is coming from. It's on whatever they wrote those three things down on. If you put it on a sticky note, or you put it on an index card, or you tattoo it on your arm, whatever you do, whatever you do, anytime you're angry, you know the internal causes, the invisible internal causes of your anger that most people don't know. And
Yeah,
that'll always be the case. You can go to the bank on that. It'll always be there forever and ever. It hasn't changed in 40 years since I first figured this out. And I've
it
worked with
makes sense.
a lot of different people.
It makes
So
sense.
that's
So
the first, remember I said there are two invisible causes.
yes,
The first one is your brain and body. We filter the world and what's happening, and we see it through those three filters when we're angry. Now, if you have anxiety, it's really the same thing, only the filters are different. You're looking through different filters. Okay, if you're feeling guilty, you're looking through different filters. If you're feeling worried, you're looking through different. So each emotion has its own three or four different filters that cause that emotion. So, but we're focused on anger. So as I say,
mhm,
if you understand anger, you understand sort of all the other emotions. You just don't have the details of how what the exact filters are. But that's not that hard to figure
something
out.
you can figure out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, or other people have figured it out. But anyhow, then the second thing that happens. So first, our brain tricks us by filtering reality and 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 distorting it in some ways and leaving some things out. So they're kind of holes in the filter, or there may be missing pieces of data that we don't have, or that the brain eliminated because it had to eliminate something. Okay, so and then it tells us that what's coming through the filters is 100% true. That's the second hidden internal cause. Okay. I
Yeah.
call it the stamp of truth. And it's instantaneous. So it's like it happens almost simultaneously. The filtering happens, and then immediately, within a millisecond, our brain is telling us that what we're seeing is the truth. It's not
Yeah.
filtered reality. It's not incomplete reality. It's real reality. It's complete reality, and it's things are really that way. And when you look at through those three filters and you believe they're true, then the chemicals and the hormones and whatever causes the emotion of anger in the human body, which is a complex thing, starts to happen. Okay. And it keeps happening as long as you see things that way. So it'll go on for years. As long as you still see the situation that way, every time if there's a situation that happened years ago that you're still angry about it, okay, every time you think about it, you're looking at it through those three filters, and it's regenerating that same anger because you're seeing it that same way. Okay, so those are the two things that we don't see going on. That we're seeing the world through filters which are not always giving us the truth, but then our brain is telling us, don't worry about it. It's the truth. You can take it as, as truth. Don't question it. Don't examine it. We're telling you it's true. Just believe it. And that's when we get the anger. Okay.
Wow.
So when you understand that process again, which I didn't really understand in my 20s and 30s, but once I understood that, then I could start asking myself. Now I knew the questions to ask.
Hey, it's Konstantin here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode.
Is it true that somebody's really doing something bad and wrong? Is it true that somebody's really being hurt and harmed? Okay. Is it true that that person who's doing the bad and wrong thing is 100% responsible or to blame? Okay. And if you start asking those questions, you'll often find out that the filters were misleading you. Your brain was
Yes.
playing tricks on you. And the answers to those questions are often different than what your brain is telling you they were. Okay.
Yes.
And once you do that, once you realize that your brain tricked you, got you to see something in a way that wasn't completely accurate, and you fill in the gaps or you see what the truth is without having to do anything. You don't have to punch anything. You don't have to run any miles. You don't have to take any deep breaths. If you just see the truth more clearly, the anger will just disappear because you're now looking at the situation. It's a different situation.
Yes, because you're breaking down the illusion, right?
Yes, yeah,
It's
it's the illusion that was causing the anger, but we don't think it's an illusion. We think it's
it's
truth.
real.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And what's even worse, here's what here's the kicker. What's even worse is the emotion of anger gets generated through these filters that are often faulty, but we mistakenly believe they're true. Okay, so anger comes from either one or three mistakes, one, two, or three mistakes. Okay, those filters, and then the fact that we feel angry makes us feel justified. It makes us feel that
Mm,
we're right the way we're looking at things. Okay, it has kind of a righteous quality to it. All right, so it actually it's a double whammy. The emotion the emotion gets created from falsehoods many times, and then we're prevented from seeing the falsehoods because we feel the emotion and it makes us feel like our perceptions and our view of the world are correct, and oftentimes they're not.
absolutely.
So we're kind of blocked from investigating and figuring out where we may have a blind spot or where we may have missed something or misinterpreted something or made a lot of common errors in terms of judging people and judging things, which happens all the time. So it's a very interesting process it's amazing if you look at all the anger in the world today. You turn on your television and you scroll social media, you see the mountains and mountains of anger. It's all coming from these three filters and the fact that people don't understand that that's where their anger is coming from. So they can't control their anger. They can't stop their anger. because they don't know what they can't put their hands on the knobs that are generating it like I can or like you could now when you know this. Okay.
Yeah, right. Because like what comes up with that for me as well is like you talked about the stamp of truth, which our brain does. But then I would imagine the news and social media and certain people in our life exasperate that problem because they portray a version of the truth,
Yeah.
which may not be true.
Yes.
And then your brain is, oh yeah, that must be true. And then you double down on it.
Yes. What
And
I
then
say,
it causes
one of the things I say is that our brains create more fake news every day than
that.
all the news media combined, but we don't know it.
Exactly. And I
Right.
mean, I'm also a psychology geek. I love psychology. I study a lot whenever I can.
Uh-huh.
And it fascinates me that consensus seems to be that our brain doesn't even know the difference between what's fake and what's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then,
Because
of course,
we're so used to accepting the fake as true.
yeah,
So the news media understand what you and I just talked about. The news media has known for decades.
yes.
They know how to make people angry. Okay, they know how to
Because that
make you
sells, right?
scared. They
That
know how to make you scared. They know how to make you angry because they know the narratives that we just talked about. If they do a story and they say somebody did something awful, somebody hurt and harmed somebody, and they were 100% responsible to blame. There were nobody
oh,
else was. Then you get angry, and they know that. So they know how this mechanism works, and they feed it every day because they want you to be angry so that you'll click or buy or do whatever is in their business model.
whatever the agenda is, yes.
Yeah. So they know that everything we just talked about, the media has known for years and years and years.
Yeah,
Right?
media and unfortunately marketing teams and people that have less
Yes.
than
Yeah.
ideal intentions for people.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more
Powerful
they
stuff.
do it, the more it just programs us to keep
Yeah.
seeing things in those distorted narratives without questioning the validity of them. It takes a
Yes.
lot today for people to sort of stand up and say, wait a second, what the media is telling me is like BS, and you've got to have that sort of muscle to stand up to it, that because it's coming at you hot and heavy from multiple sources, and you kind of feel like you're the strange one if you question it, but in reality you're the sane one if you question
For
it.
and here's the funny thing, Dr. Moore, that comes up for me here, and then it came up a few times as you were talking. Like you literally are talking about the power of reflection once you become aware of how the system works. So now
Yes.
we have the system, we know how it works,
Yes.
but now we still have to reflect, which means we have to give ourselves time
Yes.
with ourselves and not this, which is another way in which we are kept away from being able to reflect on ourselves, right? With everything that's being thrown as a distraction at us. So then you're taking away the one ability we have to be able to actually solve the problem
Yeah,
for the
but
future.
but you could take those three filters that I said to write down somewhere, and you can put them on your phone.
There we go. There
So
we
then
go.
your
That's
phone
it.
can help you reflect better.
Yeah, there
in
we
that
go.
in that in one instance, you can use your phone to sort of be a positive self-reflection device for that one
I love that.
situation. Okay, but you're right. In general, it distracts us and keeps us from doing the self-reflection that we need to do. But here's what's really important about what you said. So it's important for people to understand that just knowing what we talked about, understanding the mechanism, is not going to stop it from happening over and over and over because it's ingrained. It's
Mm,
built into our brains and our
yes.
bodies. So you may know now that your brain's tricking you, and you may know now that you have got these three filters whenever you're angry. That's not going to stop you from being angry, you know, for the foreseeable future. Okay, in the short run, because it's like a knee-jerk reflex. You're going to keep getting triggered by whatever triggers you. You're going to keep having the anger emerge because it all happens so fast and unconsciously and invisibly. All right. But now you're prepared now to deal with it better because now you can step in. You can say, I need to self-reflect here. I need to look at this. I need to ask these questions about the things that got triggered in me, the ways I'm looking at things that got triggered in me. I need to investigate them now and determine whether they're true or not. And that you can you can engage in that kind of self-examination, and the payoff is really big when you do that, if you do it well.
It is, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because what I was thinking as well that came up, like, for example, let's take the news again and the social media and whatnot, as we get conditioned more and more, this
Hmm.
knee-jerk reaction you're talking about happens faster and faster, right?
Yep.
Because it's like we keep feeding that.
Yes.
So in order to stop that, we have to train it the opposite way, which means it
Yes.
will take a bit of time, right, to be able to create an autopilot that will catch us before.
Yes. And that's what happened for me 40 years ago. When I started doing this 40 years ago, I wasn't very good at it at first. I wasn't very practiced at it. Okay. But every time I got angry and I went through this process, okay, now let me remember the three or pull out my index card or whatever, wherever I had it written
Mhm.
to bring it into awareness. Okay, now let me start asking, is that really true? Is that really? And then you would go through the process and you'd realize, oh, I missed this, or the truth is really different. And here, I'm actually building that muscle of recognizing the truth, and distinguishing it from the automatic narratives that my brain is giving me, many of which are faulty. And you do that over and over and over, you're actually retraining your brain. You're laying down new brain
Exactly.
pathways. And so a couple years down the road from when I started doing this, things that used to trigger me stopped triggering me. Didn't happen right away. Okay.
Exactly.
But as I practiced using this methodology, I was really retraining my brain to see things differently. So I didn't have that automatic negative, somebody did something wrong, somebody was hurt and harmed. I had a broader perspective. Well, maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Let me look at it. Or I could see something good about what happened, or I could see how they weren't really hurt or harmed, or I could see the world in a slightly different way. And when you see the world differently, the emotions change.
I love that because one of the things I got to help myself with to overcome certain emotions, anger being one of them to some degree,
Yeah.
and others with various people I get to work with, is this idea of doing like a stop technique, where essentially, as you become aware of your thoughts and beliefs,
Yes.
and as part of this, okay, I'm aware that I'm thinking now that this is unfair, this is wrong, whatever. You can implement a process by which you get to stop yourself and reframe the question or
Yes.
reframe the situation, which is
Yes.
sounds very similar to this. But this
Yes.
is cool because it gives really clear questions to ask yourself.
Yes, you're not wondering, do I have the right question? What is the question? What should I be
Yes.
looking at? It's right there. There's three things. They're very simple. They're always present when you're angry. You already know going in what the questions are. It's absolutely easy. It's hard to fail at it. Okay, but what is hard, so that recognizing the filters is easy once we have this discussion and you write it down, and you keep that piece of paper or whatever you have somewhere in your mind. What is hard though is interrogating the filters and
Mm.
wrestling with the truth. That's something we're not great at. We're not practiced at. It's frowned upon in our society today. Truth telling is not as valued as it once was. You know,
Yep.
and we're not as skilled at doing it. And we have all this crap coming our way, it's telling us we're wrong and no, don't do that, and all this kind of stuff that you have to fight through. It kind of reminds me of Caitlin Clark, what she's going through right now. I don't know if you know who she is or what.
No, I don't actually.
She's a female basketball player.
Oh,
Uh,
yes, I think I do know.
she
Yeah.
had those set all the scoring records for both men and women in college. She's a fantastic basketball player, and she went into the WNBA as a rookie, and she's so good that everybody, the established players, hate her now
Mm.
because she's getting all the attention. She's getting all the notoriety, and they're feeling slighted, and so she's getting physically beat up as she plays the game. They're throwing everything but the kitchen sink at her, and so she's got to fight through all of that stuff to play good basketball, which is really hard to do when she's really doing an amazing job of hanging in there and weathering the storm, because they're coming at her hot and heavy from every team, and they're knocking her down and fouling her and saying bad things about her, and just it's plus she's a rookie and she's trying to learn the game, so it's like at the professional level. So
Mhm.
but it's like that in life. I mean, we if you try to tell the truth in today's world, all this stuff is going to come at you to oppose you and to try to get you to stop and get you to quit, get you to you know go with the flow and do what everybody else is doing, and just be a good little citizen.
Exactly. Don't challenge the status quo. Why would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, and one thing I want to go back to as well that you touched upon at the beginning, right? Like the stories of our lives that come from the experiences we had in life, the society we grew up in,
Mm-hmm.
the mentors we had in our life, be it parents or teachers. I feel at one point I'm curious to see if this is part of what you do as well, but you would probably want to examine those filters as well, right? To maybe go to the source, like what's causing me in the first place to even consider this as something that potentially could get me angry, to get the next three filters. So,
Um,
meaning if,
well,
well,
I think we are. For example, each situation is going to, each triggering situation, and there's thousands of potential triggering situations, and each person could look at each situation
yeah,
differently. So you've got a lot of a lot of possibilities,
limitations,
but
yeah.
you don't really have to dig too deep psychologically because at a very powerful level the three fundamental causes. You're seeing the world this way, and it's when you start digging in and start telling the truth that's where you get at some of these issues. Okay,
Ah, gotcha.
where you may have learned to believe something, and you've been believing it for many years, and you've never really looked at it honestly and deeply to where you could say, yeah, I've been believing this, but I don't think it's all that right. Now that I look at it, or now that I think about it, or now that you point out certain things that I wasn't thinking about, now I'm seeing I could have been wrong. And if you can get to that place where you say I could be wrong, that's where you really can release a lot of anger.
Oh, yeah. And
And
I
then,
imagine a lot of other emotions too, because now
yeah,
through
yeah,
going through
yeah,
this, you're going to
yeah.
realize all the other things that are fake.
And you want to know what's funny? That turned out to be one of the big obstacles that I had in discovering this whole process because so there I was in my 20s and 30s struggling with lots of anger, knocking my head against the wall trying to get rid of it. Nothing was working. Okay? Wherever I was looking for solutions I was looking at were not the ones we're talking about here. Okay? We're trying to figure out where I was wrong about stuff. And the reason I couldn't do that is because I was trained as a doctor. So I had 7 years of intensive training where the worst thing that you could possibly do as a doctor is be wrong.
Oh, yes.
That's like the worst sin you can commit. So it was like you go through this like boot camp for 7 years, and it's like every day you're reminded, don't be wrong, don't be wrong, don't be wrong, don't be wrong. So it works professionally. You want your doctor to never be wrong if you can get a doctor
Ideally,
that's
yeah.
never wrong. So it's great for being a doctor, but when you go home, to your relationship or your kids or your life and your emotions and all that kind of stuff, you have to be able to be wrong because that's what's driving a lot of the crap in your personal life and your emotional life. And if you're blocked off from being able to admit that you're wrong about stuff, then you're never going to find the truth about those things. And that's where I was for a number of years. It was like, I don't even know how I got through to the other end, but eventually I did. And I was thankful that I did. But I really could see that was a block. It was like a mental block. Like I couldn't go there, even though that's where the gold was. that's
Exactly.
I just couldn't go because I was so trained. Again, my brain was trained to do everything possible to not go near being wrong. And
Yeah.
that's I had to eventually developed the ability to do that, which took some practice and some effort.
That resonates so much with what I've gone through growing up in Eastern Europe during the communist time, where, you know, showing up as making a mistake or showing up as being wrong was actually frowned upon because you could be ostracized. Like there were a lot of things that could happen.
Yes, yes,
So then the same mentality was instilled in us from
yes,
very young age. It's like
yes.
even if you're wrong, you can't admit it. You gotta, pull your pants up. You gotta push through it and go, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, it's not just. You're right. It's not just in medicine. It's
I mean, you see it in life everywhere, right? But in medicine, it's like it's very clear because you're absolutely
yes,
right. Like if I'm going to
yes,
the dentist, even if I go to my doctor, I depend on them 100%. So they need to be right.
yes,
Now,
yes.
at the human level, I should understand that no one is perfect and they can't
Right.
absolutely know everything. That they can't always be right.
Yeah, and we know that as doctors, we know that. But we try to be, as right as we can be. but
Exactly.
we definitely don't. We definitely have a lot of systems in place, mental and otherwise, to catch mistakes, to prevent mistakes. Have some people double check stuff and make sure we don't miss things or don't forget to look at things or schedule things or all kinds of stuff, or even just having the wrong writing a prescription and putting the decimal point in the wrong place can make a big difference. So you have to be very vigilant, because it's easy as a human being just to have things slip through, and it can be costly for people. So, but the point is, the secret to getting rid of anger boils down to being willing to be wrong, and to realize that as a human being, biologically, we're constructed to be wrong a lot of the time, and think we're right.
Yes, exactly. I love that. That by itself is a good summary of a lot of what we talked about, right?
Yes.
If you can, and what came up for me to ask you that as well is we talk about anger, and at the beginning we talked about the ripple effect of dealing with anger. What other emotions have you seen essentially being helped significantly to be reduced or increased when you deal with anger? Because I'd imagine your overall happiness will go up, right? Your
Oh yeah.
overall enjoyment of life, but also
Yeah.
perhaps things like anxiety may go down.
Well, your relationships, marriage, a lot of marriages go down the tubes because both parties succumb to anger, and it builds up over time. And then, at one point they lose the loving feeling because they've got so much resentment piled up. Your kids get somewhat damaged by anger, parental anger, if there's a lot of it. And sometimes the kids don't want to spend time with the parents if the parents are kind of on the angry side. I saw, as a doctor, one of the things that kind of propelled me into personal development work, which is where I discovered a lot of this stuff,
Mhm.
is because I was seeing patients, and as a doctor, you can tell the angry patients from the not so angry patients, and we see what happens to them over time. And you see there's much more illness, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, divorces, drug addiction, alcoholism in the people who are angry than in the people who are more mellow and don't have a lot of anger in them. And so you're observing this, and then of course I'm sitting there with my own anger, not knowing how to deal with it, which kind of says I better keep pushing to find a solution because I don't want to end up like that, but it's very clear, as doctors have a very interesting perspective on this, which many people don't get to see as clearly as we do, is what happens to angry people over time regarding their health, regarding their families, or they'll tell you that their business partnership dissolved, or they got fired from their job, or all kinds of nasty things, including getting into legal trouble, getting into fights.
Oh yeah,
You can get shot, you can get killed, you have road rage, all kinds of crazy things that can happen when your anger, you can't control your anger.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Right? I mean,
yeah,
not to mention the impact on your career or
yeah,
potential for a career.
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
For the
I,
moment,
I
yes.
was at a seminar. I was at a seminar a year or so ago. It was a small seminar with like 10 or 12 people, and so it was kind of intimate. And there was a gal who shared with me on the side when there was like a break, and she was a mother of 4 kids, and they were at the time they were all teenagers, and her oldest son was having a lot of trouble, and one day they were at home together, and they got into a fight in the living room, not a fight, but an argument in the living room,
Yeah.
and it was a heated argument, and the son ended the argument by turning to his mother and said, "I hate you," and then he started to walk away, and the mother just reflexively responded, "I hate you too." So the boy goes upstairs, gets his father's gun, and shoots himself.
Oh.
So I'm not saying that she caused that per se,
Mhm.
but the kid obviously had a lot of other problems going on. But that's an example. That's an extreme example of you know there are a lot of nasty things that can happen when you lose control of your anger and you lose control of your temper, and you people shoot other people, or hit other people when they shouldn't. They end up in jail. They end up, in legal jeopardy, expensive legal jeopardy. There's nasty, nasty things that can happen. And when you can't control your emotions, and you can't control your emotions unless you understand the 4 steps involved, and that
Exactly.
2 of them are invisible.
Two of them are invisible, and our environment is not set up to help us with those invisible.
Yes. And
issues, right?
if you ask your friends, is anger a two-step process or a four-step process? They'll say, what planet are you from? It's a two-step process.
Well, yeah, something happens in your environment, and
And then you
then
get angry. It has to be a two-step process.
I mean that's the same with every emotion, right?
Yes, yes.
It's beautiful. But you're right, actually, because and now I think of a lot of things I've changed in my life over the last couple of years. I've embarked on a pretty big journey myself, and I brought more gratitude. I brought a lot more compassion, empathy into my life,
Yeah.
and it's
You're seeing,
the same type
and
of
that
filters.
ultimately that comes from seeing the world more correctly.
Yeah, but also, yeah, it's also filters, right? Because I'm looking at it like, okay, so for me to be able to have gratitude, I have to
Uh-huh.
filter through some things. I realize what's true versus what's not so true.
Yeah. And we have brains that aren't where gratitude is not their strong suit. Okay. That's why
Yeah,
we have to work at. That's why we have to intentionally remind ourselves to be grateful for what we have because our brains are going to be giving us all this negative stuff and focusing on the negatives. Okay.
yeah.
And so again, it's a trick that the brain is
The
tricking
negativity
us.
bias, right? The
Yeah,
negativity bias.
because there's a lot of things to be grateful. I mean, just the fact that you woke up in the morning, you should be grateful. You're still alive. You know, you can go stand under a tree and be grateful.
Exactly.
That nature is the way that it is. I mean, there's so many things to be grateful for, and then our brains are going like, no, 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 no.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I was just mentioning the negativity bias. That's innate within each of us humans because the I guess the job not I guess I know this the job of our ego, the job of our brain is to keep us alive.
Yes,
And change is scary, which is change is what causes you to die eventually, right? So
yes,
and the lack of change too, but it's like
yes,
keeping you the same, right? So
yes.
then like why would I look at something else if I can just stay the same, be in my bubble, believe whatever I believe, and then
Yeah,
live
and
a
that's
longer
the brain
life?
tricking you again. It's tricking you to keep you safe, but it's also robbing you of a lot of the joys and pleasures and
Yes,
possibilities in life when you play life that way. You know,
exactly.
yeah. But it is trying to protect you. But that's it. So the brain is not designed to make us happy. We have to make ourselves happy. Okay, it's not designed to give us appreciate gratitude. We have to remind ourselves to be grateful for all the things that we have. And there are a lot of other things, the ways that our brain tricks us. So, there's like 200 and some cognitive biases
Yes,
that our brains are
that's a few.
good at engaging in. So I mean, there's just so many ways that the brain will trick us.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and what I'm hearing here as well, what I love, I mean, a lot of people say knowledge is power, right? And some agree, some don't. But this is a great example where knowledge is actually power, because the knowledge of how this works, and not just
Yes,
anger, like all the emotions, we can look at
yes,
this and say, this is how it works.
yes,
That's power, because now you have choice. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It
yeah,
doesn't mean you're going to be perfect every time, but now you have a choice. It's like, if this bothers me or bothers others, and my relationships are a certain way, then I can do something about it.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And that's why that's really the intention behind my book that I wrote, my most recent book, the life, Dr. Orman's Life Changing Anger Cure. I really I put everything that I teach in my coaching programs and everything into that book, so you can literally take that book. It goes into a lot of things we talked about today, but you can literally take that as a blueprint and go do the things we're talking about from reading that. And my one of my dreams is to have that change the way we educate people about emotions in
That would
high
be
school and
amazing.
college and professional school. Using that as a blueprint for how you could teach people to understand themselves and their emotions, and it could make a huge impact on people.
That's
So,
awesome, Dr.
when I
Moritz.
got when the book just came out a month or two ago, and it's on Amazon. So I ordered my first copies for myself as an author. Okay, so I ordered 15 copies.
Okay,
So the box comes, and I get my 15 copies. You know the first thing I did with it?
just being great gratitude towards it.
Well, I mean, open it. But every day in the morning, I take a walk and in my neighborhood, and I go past these 5 or 6 kids that are waiting for the middle school bus,
Ah,
and I go past them every day, and then I turn around a block later and come back and I go past them the other way, and we kind of acknowledge it. We don't really talk, but we just say hi or something like that. So the first thing I did when I grabbed 6 or so copies of the book, and I walked out, and as I walked past them, I handed each of them a copy of the book, and I said, "Here, take a look at this. would like to give this to you as a gift. If you want it, take a look at it. And when I come back around in a minute or so, if you don't want it, just give it back to me. Okay. And I came back around, and to my surprise, they all wanted to keep it.
Beautiful.
But so for me, to put that in the hands of 5 or 6 middle school kids, to expose them to this kind of powerful way of thinking about their emotions, which I'm sure they're not getting exposed to
Exactly.
by other sources. That's the thing we should be doing. We should be.
That's what school should be about, right? I don't remember anyone talking about this because it's
It should be preparing you for life. It should be how to understand your emotions, how to understand relationships, which is another thing we don't teach. Another area that I specialize in is stress, which this is part of. And emotions are part of stress. But that's another thing we don't prepare kids for, is how to understand and deal with stress. So there's a lot of things we really need to be teaching that we're not, and this is one of them. This is one of them.
Yeah. It's a huge one, right? Because this pretty much impacts every aspect of your life, as does stress.
So anybody listening to this podcast who is involved with schools, who's involved with it could be homeschool, it could be public school, private school, and you want to contact me and brainstorm ways that we could do some kind of pilot or something to get this into whatever school you're involved with, or PTA group you're involved with, or even book club. I'd be happy to do this as a book club thing for people, where we start spreading this knowledge around, so that really empowers people to have better control over their emotions.
And we'll put all the details to how people can find you and the book as well in the show notes, so people can easily, if you're listening to this, maybe you're driving, maybe you don't have an easy way to click on the links now, but they'll be there for you to find.
Yeah.
Dr. Mort, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I've learned a lot. I'm obviously going to pick up your book and look at the other ones, and I'm going to go deeper into this because it fascinates me and it makes sense. And I have a math degree. If it makes sense, then I'm all in.
And as you go through it, if you have any questions, just email me. I'll be happy to,
absolutely. We'll love to
respond.
Now, before I let you go for the day, Dr. Mort, is there anything else that comes up that we haven't covered that maybe it's important for people listening to know?
2 things. I think educating people in this way about anger in particular will go a long way towards reducing the amount of unnecessary violence, hatred, division, all the stuff we're seeing today that comes from anger. That obviously it's a big nut to crack, but we got to start somewhere. So
exactly.
Yeah, but this I think this has promise if it takes hold and expands. And the other thing is to make sure, the other big myth, you asked about myths earlier, the other big myth we have is once an angry person, always an angry person. And you kind of feel like, particularly if you've tried to get rid of your anger and you haven't succeeded, you kind of feel like, well, it's just my personality. It's just how I am. It's my DNA. And it's not. You can, if you really want to stop being angry, you can. It's not easy, but you can do it. There's a method for it. You can get the book and it'll show you how to do it. So don't succumb to that mythology that you're stuck with your anger.
It's a choice in the end, right?
It's not a choice unless you know what to choose to get out of it.
Yes.
You have to choose the right thing that has the ability to get you out.
Which is tricky.
People have been choosing a lot of stuff to try to deal with their anger, but none of it has the power to really help them like that. So until you latch on to those invisible causes and understand them and understand that you have the power to do something about them,
you do. That's a powerful place
to. And if you'd asked me in my 20s and 30s, if you'd have come to me in my 20s and 30s and said, "Do you ever see yourself as not being an angry person?" I would say, "Nah, that's not possible."
It's part of you. Yeah.
And then it happens.
It's the same thing with anxiety, right? I hear people all the time around me, "I'm just an anxious person," or "I'm just a stressed person. You don't understand my life." Things of that nature, which is something that I feel like the brain tricks us again to keep us quote unquote safe. It's like, you just are that way, so don't challenge it. Stay the same.
And again, that's the thing: anxiety and stress that gets conditioned. So there are people that are more anxious than other people,
of course,
have more anxiety than other people, and it's harder for them to overcome it, but they can. Okay? They just have to not succumb to the belief that they're helpless.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. Awesome, Dr. Mort. I want to thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yeah, this has been fun.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose, with purpose. See you in the next episode.